Keon.
And this is Jay Inevitable, that podcast about Jane Cobb. Because this week we watched Jaynestown.
Written by Ben Edlund.
Directed by Marita Grabiak.
And aired on
Grabiak, I don't know.
October 18th, 2002.
Yeah, so as you can see, we're changing the theme of the podcast. It used to be about sci-fi shows. We've decided now it's just all about Jane. We've rebranded ourselves Jay Inevitable. And
a Jane podcast.
A Jane podcast. Hopefully we're not turning away any new listeners who decided this was the first episode of Inevitable they're going to listen to.
Well, hopefully we do turn away literally everyone who's ever listened to this podcast when we say that after we watch Firefly, we'll be transitioning to, I don't know, like Jane Eyre or something.
Yeah, it's going to be Jane-themed things only. We'll watch a couple episodes of The Mentalist where the main character's name is Jane. We're going to watch every adaptation of Jane Eyre and then read Jane Eyre. We're not going to read it first. We want to make sure that we're completely biased before reading the book. I'm trying to think of other famous properties where there's a Jane involved.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Even when we were Inevitable, we kind of only decided what we were going to watch next like 3 weeks before we started the season.
Yeah, true. I mean, it also doesn't matter because it's like, it's not true. We're not actually doing that.
Yeah, this whole thing is a bit...
In case you couldn't tell.
Yeah, in case you couldn't tell by our 10 out of 10 acting.
What's also a bit weird is
nice,
sort of...
Nice segue.
Well, it's sort of the, I guess before we get into the meat of Jaynestown, Ben Edlund and Marita Grabiak have very interesting careers as writers/directors. So Ben Edlund, I found out,
The
created Tick, that superhero, that like animated superhero. Yeah, The Tick. Yeah.
I've watched a couple episodes of the not the original Tick show, but like the Amazon remake, I guess it would be, that they did, I don't know, 3 years ago.
Yeah, he was involved in that one as well.
It was actually pretty, I wouldn't say it was like super funny, but it was actually pretty good. Overall.
Mm-hmm. And he's also worked on other Joss Whedon things like Angel, and a bunch of other things too. He wrote an episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Wrote an episode of the Venture Brothers. Wrote like 24 episodes of Supernatural. Some Gotham. A bunch of other things too. So it's pretty interesting, I guess.
Well, Marita, who's going to be going by Marita for the next segment, has also had an interesting career. You know, she was script supervisor on a couple things in the 80s and 90s before she really transitioned into directing. She script supervisor on Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which is the sequel to Bill and Ted, I believe. And also the movie Soap Dish, and then ER. And ER was where she transitioned into being a director. She went from script supervisor to director, and then after that she directed Firefly, obviously, Buffy and Angel, Smallville, Lost, SVU. You know, just a bunch of really big shows, Dollhouse. And then, you know, around Dollhouse, you know, around 2010, I guess she decided, hey, I can make way more money by directing Hallmark Christmas movies, because it was at that time she switched to basically most of her credits after that are Christmas movies. You know, we got Christmas in the City, we've got Sleigh Bells Ring, we've got With Love Christmas, we've got this strangely titled knockoff of Four Weddings and a Funeral, or Four Funerals and a Wedding, whatever, called Four Christmases and a Wedding. We've got The Christmas Pact. We've got Winter Castle. We've got Christmas Scavenger Hunt. We've got Random Acts of Christmas. We've got A Cheerful Christmas. We've got A Christmas Crush. We've got Christmas on Wheels.
God, all classics
Wait,
of the
what does that
Christmas
one mean?
genre. Clearly.
Christmas on Wheels. Upon learning that her uncle sold her mom's vintage convertible, a car full of Christmas memories, Ashley enlists the help of her uncle's attorney Duncan to get it back. What? Who comes up with this?
Marita Grabiak,
Who comes up
apparently.
with this?
Well, I guess not, because she didn't.
Well, she was just the director.
Directed them, yeah.
Who wrote this? What? IMDb. Oh, God, I hate IMDb's new interface. I know this is a bit of a tangent already, but IMDb's like new, like, I guess, quote unquote modern interface is like so impossible to use. It's so user unfriendly. Anyway, writers Tammy Klembeth, George Klembeth, and Barbara Kimlicka. I don't know. Why do these all sound like fake names?
Didn't want to be associated with the Hallmark brand, maybe.
Her most recent movie is called Love in Yellowstone. It's currently in post-production. It has no plot on an IMDb yet.
Hell yeah.
But it was written by Barbara Kimlicka, so I'm sure you could expect the same level of quality. Thanks,
As
Marita.
what? As Jaynestown?
No. As the previous Christmas movie I just mentioned that my brain has already like discarded, I guess.
No, Christmas on Wheels?
Yeah, that's the one. Christmas on Wheels.
You've never seen Christmas on Wheels? No, I'm just kidding.
We'll be transitioning this podcast to a Hallmark Christmas podcast come Christmas season. We'll be talking about Christmas on Wheels. I hope you all stick around for this new era in inevitable history.
I bet there are like Hallmark movie podcasts out there.
There have to be. There have to be, right? Like, oh God! Now that we've made that joke, this offhanded joke about us doing that, people are going to email us and be like, "Please do."
No, I don't think so. You
don't think so?
No. Just because of the subject matter, right? It's for God's sake, it's Hallmark movies. I, a self-proclaimed lover of repetitive things, even I sort of understand.
If we watch enough Hallmark movies, maybe we can crack the code and write our own Hallmark movie.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe that'll be our claim to fame.
And then we can leverage that into a position running Doctor Who after Russell T Davies. This is our master plan. Don't tell the BBC. Anyway, Jaynestown. I want to preempt a lot of the upcoming discussion because I sense that perhaps at least I'm going to come off more negative than maybe I intend to. I don't think this episode was bad, in comparison to many things we've watched. I do think it's maybe the worst episode of Firefly we've watched so far, if only because it is the first episode of the 7 episodes we've watched so far that I've actually found kind of boring.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I do think it was probably the most boring episode so far. Prior to watching this episode, I didn't know how to check the timestamp on the PlayStation 4 like DVD player app thing, and now I do. Let's just put it that way. It's triangle, in case anyone wanted to know. But yeah, no, for real, this is the first Firefly episode that actually like made me check timestamp. I mean, I don't really know. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't necessarily bad or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, something about it was more boring than the previous 6.
I also checked the timestamp, but that's a lot easier to do on Hulu because you just pause the episode for like a quick second.
Mm-hmm.
I actually checked the timestamp right about when was right about like when they're having the celebration for Jane, because I'm like, either we're only 10 minutes into this episode or we've got like 10 minutes left, like there's no in between. And then it was about 15 minutes left and I'm like, oh God.
It has its moments, though. It has its moments. It's, would you say this one is more comedic than the previous ones? Or is that just,
Well, I think this one plays Jane as more comedic than the previous episodes. I don't know if that necessarily makes the whole episode more comedic than previous episodes, but it definitely makes Jane more comedic than the previous episodes.
Sure, and Jane is probably the most comedic character of the bunch, so maybe it was just inevitable that his episode would kind of be more comedic or something. Or kind of focus on that more. Although it obviously did have its serious, somber moments towards the end. This, despite obviously having a focus on Jane, though, this one does feel like sort of an ensemble episode, except for maybe Wash and Zoe.
Yeah. When Wash left the ship to go with the group who was going out to look at the mud, I was like, oh, yeah, Wash is finally going to get his episode. Like, this is going to be the Wash episode. And joke was on me, I guess.
Yeah, Wash didn't do anything. Barely had any lines.
Yeah, he one of his only lines in this episode was that episode where he's like, oh, heck yeah, like, yeah, I'm going to get to go out. Yeah, doesn't Zoe usually stay behind? Like, yeah, woo.
I think one of his other lines is just like him swearing because they can't take off. Speaking of swearing, that's how this episode actually opens. Simon is talking to Kaylee. Didn't expect this to be, sort of the focus of the episode that it was. But like, there's sort of an advancement in the relationship between Kaylee and Simon. Which, tell me if you thought the same, but like up until this point, I didn't really see as like an actual sort of serious thing. I just saw it as like, maybe sort of this crush in the background, that was kind of playing out in the background of the show.
Oh, no, they definitely made it a whole thing in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. More so than previous episodes, that's for sure. But they're basically talking, and Kaylee is basically wondering why Simon is so like proper and he never curses. And he goes like, no, I do sometimes, when it's appropriate, he says.
Yeah, then they see Jane rifling through the med bay, and just everything is in disarray. And he's like, oh, sugar biscuits. And Kaylee's like, this is the perfect time to use a swear. And Simon's like, Jane, what are you doing? You've messed up my whole infirmary. And he's like, I just needed some tape. It's all good. He's like taping a gun to his stomach.
Yeah, apparently the town that they're going to, which is named Canton, or the world. I didn't really know what exactly is the extent of Canton. Is it just the settlement? Is it the entire moon? Who knows, right? But basically, where they're going, there are no guns allowed. So Jane decides to like conceal a gun on himself, but in a way that isn't really going to allow him to like draw it quickly if need be, right? He's taping it to his stomach. As far as I'm aware, like, you wouldn't, I mean, if they like landed and got into a gunfight, which I guess technically they do, and he wouldn't really be able to draw his gun, right? You'd have to take off his shirt, possibly his pants, untape the tape, and then he would be able to draw it.
I guess just he wants to know that it's they.
Yeah. His safety blanket or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, Mal comes in and he sort of delivers some exposition The plan is that they're going to Canton, they're going to pick up some goods, and they need to get out. They need to get the goods out of Canton without anyone realizing.
Yeah, because it's, they're not meeting with anyone in an official capacity. They're meeting, with someone who already the goods they're trying to get off the planet are stolen, as we find out later. There's also no guns allowed on Canton. I don't know if we made it clear that this isn't like they're not taking the guns because they don't want to. It's like there's actually no guns allowed on Canton, apparently.
Right. So they land on Canton, and we sort of come to understand what Canton is. They make clay / mud.
Yeah, they make mud. They make mud for ceramic panels, apparently.
Yep, through there, and the laborers who do this are slaves, basically.
Yeah, they call them indentured servants, which is, slaves. They say something. Oh God. Okay, I'll explain what they say, and then I explain how we get there, because we shouldn't actually skip over this. But they tell Simon that they use indentured servants, because they can pay them next to nothing and pass those profits on to the customer. And the reason why he's telling this to Simon is because Kaylee is like, "Hey, can Simon come with this time?" And Simon's like, no, I shouldn't. No. And they're like, no, we need someone who looks nice and respectable to be a buyer of all the muds. So yeah, you should come with. Plus, Shepherd Book can look after your sister. Right.
So that's sort of maybe the unfortunate B plot of the episode is sort of antics between Book and River.
The B plot, that's like fully the C plot.
Then what's the B plot? Oh, the B plot is with Inara, because Inara also has business on Canton. It's not, I don't know if it's fully explained, or maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but you think her client is the magistrate, who you come to learn in a minute is sort of the guy running this mud creating mud operation. Town. Right. You think he's the client, but it's actually his son.
In a shocking plot twist of M. Night Shyamalan proportions.
Was that a plot twist, or was I just not paying attention?
I wouldn't call it a plot twist.
Sure.
But I wouldn't say it was explicit that it was going to be his son beforehand.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Anyway, one thing, as someone who used to be pretty into ceramic pottery for a couple years, and I wasn't, good at it or anything, but maybe I got pretty good, made a couple of my own bowls. Not a couple, a handful, like a bunch, but nice. And plates and stuff. But like one thing they mentioned in this episode that a lot of people don't know, but is actually true, is just the strength of ceramic ware. Like you can throw ceramic like things hard, like against the ground or anything, and they typically won't break, which they make passing mention of in the episode. So,
well, they also, along those same lines, make mention of something that people are not probably aware of, equally not as aware of, which is that ceramic plates, what's the exact word I'm looking for? I can't remember now. But ceramic plates are used in spaceships a lot. Like heat shields for the space shuttle were all ceramic, believe it or not.
Yeah, that heat shield in Doctor Who's The Daemons was actually a certain... No, I'm kidding.
That's a deep cut. That's a real deep cut. So Simon is kind of like, we's looking to buy some mud, and
yes, Simon.
I don't know why that's my impression of Simon's bio disguise, but
I know he's from New York. All of a sudden, probably just insulted everyone out there from New York because that's probably not the actual accent, but hell if I know. But like, yeah, they're
New York is big enough that it has sub accents like most countries do. So
yeah, that's true. But the reason why Simon is sort of their guy is I guess just what they were talking about at the beginning, which is that he's like the most proper of them, and seems like he would be the most, I guess, liable to be there buying mud in large quantities.
The most likely to be buying mud at all.
Mm-hmm. So there's sort of a I don't remember exactly what it was, but there's sort of like a funny line here where Mal is like, "Hey, like Simon, like you need to get us like get going here."
Yeah, he says something like, what if we walked around and took a look at everything before you make a purchase, boss?
Yeah.
And Simon is like, yeah, that.
I know, in the most like condescending like way possible. So they do that, and they find they find something they never expected to see.
A statue of Jane. So Jane, we should mention Jane is pretty heavily disguised up at this point. He's wearing like basically snow gear. He's got his hoodie up. He's got his goggles on.
I know, and what looks like 95-degree weather. He's just bundled up. And
so he's pretty incognito at the moment.
Right, and we've learned at this point that he's actually been to Canton before. He mentions it in dialogue, and he basically just says that like he made enemies there, which is no surprise. He's Jane.
So when they see the statue, he explains a little more of the story. He robbed the magistrate of like millions of untraceable credits, but then had to dump it all.
Right.
Because otherwise, he had to dump it all. I don't think at this point he actually explains why he had to dump it or when he dumped it, but I think he just says like he lost all of the money.
He said he couldn't get airborne with the amount of weight, so he had to dump the cash.
Yeah.
Which, you can put two and two together at this point of like the reason why he's so idolized in Canton is because he's sort of this Robin Hood figure to them. He stole from the magistrate and dumped the cash over the town, not intending for it to be like a payout to the servants, but
I think when they see the statue, they actually assume that the statue is there because Jane is hated, and the statue is like there to remind everybody what he looks like, because they're all like, yeah, we should probably move pretty quick because everybody hates Jane here. And it's not until they're actually in the bar and they start singing that song about Jane when everybody realizes that it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so they can't find the guy they're supposed to meet, so they decide to go hole up in the local watering hole for a little while.
Right. Meanwhile, back on the ship, River is
fixing Shepherd Book's Bible.
Right. She's annotating it pretty well. She's got some notes in the margins there. Different colored pens for highlighting.
She's also tearing out pages lest we forget.
Yeah, she's like, what does she say? She's trying to make it like more logical or something like that.
She's trying to fix the inconsistencies in the stories. And
Shepherd Book takes this surprisingly well. He just kind of calmly walks over and is like, hell no.
It's like, you need to give me my book back. And I think he gets it back from her, sans the pages she tore out, which he says, fine, you can keep those.
Yeah, well, I think he's trying to, like, she has this bundle that she's torn out, and he's trying to grab it back, and then those rip in half, and he's like, okay, fine, keep those. And he sort of...
That's all we get on that little thing.
Yeah, well, he also, like, details some of his thoughts on religion. In sort of an overwrought...
He does make a really... He makes a really condescending statement, like in the context of River, Simon being really concerned that they did something to mess with River's mind at that institution where he says, like, you don't fix the Bible fixes you.
Oh, I didn't take it that way. I didn't take it to mean like like you specifically. Like I thought it was just maybe in general, or that maybe he was even talking about himself, right? You know, he has so far been hinted to maybe have sort of this troubled past or something like that. So maybe he turns to religion.
I definitely took it as him being. I definitely took it as him telling River she needs Jesus, basically.
Yeah, I guess you can kind of read that either way. Maybe it's both.
Anyway, I also want to take a moment to explain the like absolutely disgusting drink they're drinking at the bar, which is
it's like
milk and alcohol.
Yeah, it's like milk mead or something like that.
Yeah, it's like milk mixed with a beer, basically.
Okay, so was it actually? I was unsure about this. Did it actually contain milk, or was that did they just call it milk because of like perhaps how like thick it was?
I thought based on Jane's description that it actually contained milk.
Mm-hmm.
Based on how Jane described it, I thought it contained milk.
Yeah, probably. It probably did. Yeah. I just thought there was a little room for ambiguity there. Simon explains that it's possibly, similar to what the ancient Egyptians gave their own slaves to drink, the ones who sort of built the pyramid, not sort of, the ones who did build the pyramids.
The ones who sort of
yeah.
Only kind of
they did like 20%. The other 80 was like the aliens. No, and I think Wash, in one of his 3 lines this episode, calls it liquid bread.
Yeah.
So yeah, sounds gross. Sounds filling, at least.
I guess. It really does sound disgusting.
Mm-hmm. But what's perhaps more disgusting, or more off-putting to Jane at least, is the song that they are hearing. Because throughout all of this, there's singing in the background, but then they sort of break into a louder song, a sort of a ballad, I guess. And it's called, so the Firefly Wiki transcribed the entire lyrics. I mean, they wrote an entire song for this thing. It's called The Hero of Canton, the Ballad of Jane Cobb. And, should we read the full lyrics here and now? I mean,
do you want to?
Why not? They're pulled. I have them pulled up here, so why? What? We're not going to have any other opportunity to read poetry on Inevitable.
I guess that's true.
So why not? And they whoever, I guess. I guess it was probably Marita Grabiak, wrote this full thing. So here we go. And they're listening to it at this point in the episode, The Ballad of Jane Cobb. I'm just going to read this verbatim as it's written, as it's transcribed here on the Firefly Wiki. So Jane, the man they called Jane. He robbed from the rich and he gave to the poor. Stood up to the man and he gave him what for? Our love for him now ain't hard to explain, the hero of Canton, the man they call Jane. Now Jane saw the mutters' backs breakin', he saw the mutters lament, and he saw the magistrate takin' every dollar and leavin' 5 cents. So he said, you can't do that to my people, you can't crush them under your heel. Jane strapped on his hat, and in 5 seconds flat, stole everything Boss Higgins had to steal. He robbed from the rich and he gave to the poor, stood up to the man and he gave him what for. Our love for him now ain't hard to explain. The hero of Canton, the man they call Jane. Now here is what separates heroes from common folk like you and I. The man they call Jane, he turned round his plane and let that money hit sky. He dropped it into our houses, he dropped it into our yards. The man they call Jane, he turned round his plane and headed out for the stars. Here we go. He robbed...
Keep going, I'm loving this.
He robbed from the rich, and he gave to the poor. Stood up to the man, and he gave him what for. Our love for him now ain't hard to explain. The hero of Canton, the man they call Jane. Dr. Seuss, 1961. I don't know. Yeah, that's the song. The Ballad of Jane. And the further they get in the song, the more Jane just kind of buries his head in his mug, his arms, just the more he shrinks down. But this is an interesting way to kind of detail the backstory here. And yeah, like you mentioned before, this is the point where it becomes clear that the people of Canton sort of see Jane as this Robin Hood figure who stole from Magistrate Higgins and gave to them. Well, which he did, but he never intended to do.
Yeah, so at this point, Jane explains that the reason why they dumped all of the money is because they were actually shot by the magistrate and could not leave. So they had to dump the money, and basically he didn't realize that they had dumped it on the town.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this is a little later on, but we can kind of explain it now. So one of the townsfolk, the one who ends up taking a bullet for Jane later in the episode, explains that the magistrate tried to get the money back, but the Mudders banded together and were like, hell no. And so all he could so he basically was powerless against them when they did that, and so let them keep it, calling it a bonus.
Well, I mean, he had to let them keep it because because the people basically rioted to keep it.
Mm-hmm. And the episode sort of, at this point, maybe hits the nail on the head, thematically or something. Right? When the Mudders band together, they're far more powerful than the magistrate, just through sheer numbers.
They learned the power of unionizing.
And then quickly forgot it or something like that, or didn't put it to use. But yeah, as this is going on, we're also getting a little bit with the magistrate because, as we sort of mentioned before, that's what Inara is the B plot of this episode. She's here, you think, to see the magistrate, but then it becomes clear in a later scene she's here to see his son as a client, of course. The magistrate is he's upset that his son is how old is he? He's 25, 26, still a virgin. So yeah.
26.
So that's why he's called Inara in.
Okay. Okay. Now, you probably didn't see this the way I saw this, but the lighting was bad. There was glare on my TV. So, so the guy walks in, the magistrate walks in with his kid, Fess, I think he's called.
Yeah.
And
no, he's not really a kid. I mean,
well, son. Yeah, you know what
son,
I mean.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And so his son looked like in the shadows and with the glare and everything, looked like his son had a little kind of patchy beard on his chin and a ponytail. And I was like, wow, his son looks like a neck beard. Did Firefly predict the prototypical neckbeard style before neckbeards became big on the internet? And then they were like, oh, he's also a virgin. I was like, wow, Firefly, really predicting the future here with this whole thing. But then later on in the episode, you actually see him in better light, and he doesn't, he doesn't have a beard on his face and he doesn't have a ponytail. But for a couple minutes there, I was like, wow, just an actual neckbeard on Firefly. This is bizarre.
that would have been bizarre. But yeah, I didn't see it that way, I guess, obviously, since I was actually watching this in decent lighting conditions. But also, that was a stereotype back then, too, that look. Animaniacs had a sort of bit about that.
Yeah, you're right, actually. They did have a bit about that, so I guess it wouldn't have been that out of the... that far outside the realm of possibility is what I wanted to say.
Yeah. But that wasn't the case. Yeah. I don't know how powerful was that glare that's what you saw, but
well,
whatever, I guess.
I have a plasma screen you've watched.
Yeah. And that it's sort of leaning against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not directly upright.
No.
Anyway,
Jane, I think they're trying to get out of the bar undercover, but it doesn't work. They walk out and they're just like, everyone, it's Jane. He's back.
Oh my God, it's Jane. They immediately mob them.
Jane Cobb. So Jane is like, oh God, oh no. But then 5 seconds later, he's like, oh man, this is great. I'm a local celebrity.
Yeah, so he's loving it. He walked back into the bar because the people outside the bar haven't relayed the information that this is Jane to the people inside the bar yet.
Yeah.
And he orders some more Mother's milk at the bar top. And the bartender looks at him and then slaps the milk out of Jane's hand. And Jane goes, what the heck was that for? And he goes, what does he say? A local hero's not going to drink that. Oh, hero of Canton won't be drinking that. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this Chinese slang. And then he gives it, he goes, this is actually really funny. He goes, he'll be drinking the best whiskey in the house.
Yeah.
I guess preempting the new segment of the show, the translation of some of the Chinese slang. What he says there, which again I'm not going to try to pronounce, translates to panda urine.
Oh. That's pretty good. I wonder if that is contemporary to the Firefly universe. So what I mean by that is I wonder if pandas exist in Firefly or if they're just, sort of maybe I don't know what the modern equivalent would be, like the dodo or something that had died out. Or the okapi,
Oh my God.
The okapi, however you pronounce it, that animal that everyone thought was extinct, but it actually wasn't. I think the okapi was. I think people thought that was extinct, and then they found some. I think that was the case. Or maybe that was
just
the
looked
new.
This up 2 weeks ago when we were on delayed replay.
Yeah, check that out. Podcast by a friend of this podcast, Steven Schinder.
The okapi is also is one of only 2 members of Giraffidae. It's it and the giraffe. Believe it or not. Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah. Well, it was either the okapi or the new, I think, that people thought was extinct, but wasn't. I can't remember.
Who knows? We can revive dead animals now. Science has gone too far.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, we cut ahead 10 minutes and everyone's just drunk off their mind except for Mal. Kaylee and Simon are heavily flirting at this point.
It wasn't 10 minutes. It was maybe an hour.
I think it's funny if it's 10 minutes.
3 minutes. They've just slammed back enough to be that drunk.
They've been shotgunning. They've been just shotgunning Mother's milk.
Oh, by the way, let's revive this. Let's revive my quest to get you to admit the Firefly soundtrack is good / decent. How'd you like that didgeridoo in the soundtrack?
I have a note. It just says "lol" the didgeridoo in the score.
This is what God, I shouldn't have even brought this up because I forgot the guy's name. This is what's his name who composed the soundtrack meant when he said there were going to be like influences from different cultures around the world.
Yes, he meant the didgeridoo.
Mm-hmm. Greg Edmondson. Yeah, how could I forget Greg Edmondson?
Oh, Greg Edmondson.
Mm-hmm. So this is the point in the episode and the point in Firefly really where I that makes you go like, oh, the Simon and Kaylee relationship is actually like sort of a serious romantic plotline and not just
a throwaway joke.
Yeah. I don't know if that's how you saw it, but that's definitely how I saw it up until here.
I mean, I definitely thought it was just background nonsense,
Yeah, as did I. Turns out it's a little bit more serious than that. Mal walks over and he's like, hey, Simon and Kaylee, like, let's like kick it into gear. Like, this is a good time to do what we need to do.
And that's when Kaylee's like, no, things are going well. And Mal's like, yeah, they are. We're gonna get the stuff and leave. And she's like, no, things are going well. And he's like, oh, all right. I guess I'll just go figure this all out then.
The one time in Firefly that Mal is like able to take a hint.
Yeah, considering he never picks up on it from Inara.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's probably the funniest point in the episode too. Later on, we'll get there, but later on when Inara thinks the story about Jane is actually about Mal. What happens at this point?
Mal goes to do the thing, and him and Wash actually go back to the ship. Wash, yeah, bet you forgot Wash was in this bar. Him and Wash go back to the ship, and they're like, oh, by the way, Jane is a local hero.
So we kind of get this off screen, but they convince the town to throw this celebration for Jane the next day, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And they're going to use that as cover for the operation while people are distracted, basically. They have like
Zoe is like, wait, what? There's also when they arrive, they're in the middle of trying to get River out from the floor panel she's hiding in because she's seen Shepherd Book's hair when it's not tied back into his ponytail, and she's shocked.
Yeah. I liked how that moment was done, honestly. It was funny. It was funny. You sort of see Shepherd Book's like Einsteinian appearance. Yeah. And, just as you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, apparently you can't tie the hair back once it's been undone, because River says she's never coming out again, even if Shepherd Book ties his hair back, because it'll still be there, waiting.
But luckily for her, well, like we said, Mal and Wash show up at this point.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't mention this character. He's not really too important a part of the episode, but like they have a man in town who's kind of who needs to see to it that they do what they have to do. I don't know if he was the actual client or if he was just working for the client or what, but like he's like, all right guys, like come on, get with the program here.
Yeah, it also doesn't really matter like if he's the client or not because he hooks them up with the goods anyway.
Yeah.
So he hooks them up with the goods.
So as all this is going on, Inara's doing her job.
Yeah, yeah. And then Fess just kind of explains, "Oh yeah, we have a local hero, a guy who gave us a bunch of money," and she's like, "Well, there's more to him than that, because from Fess's point of view, he believes that Jane is a criminal because, well, Jane stole from his family."
Well, I don't think I don't think he thinks that because he has, because of what he does at the end, and because of what I think he has a line like, I don't see it the way my father does, or something like that. Doesn't he?
I don't know if he has a line like that. I think he did believe his father, but I think what he does at the end is him realizing that he probably shouldn't just blindly believe his father about everything.
Right,
because of what Inara told him about, like, well, shouldn't you like make your own opinions?
Yeah, well, because so they right before they have this little misunderstanding about like Mal and Jane, Fess is like, well, I guess I'm a man now, but to be honest, I don't really feel any different than I did before. And then Inara sort of follows that up with like, it isn't losing your virginity, or it isn't like, it isn't. What does she say? Yeah, I think it is just that. Like, it isn't losing your virginity. It's like, it's just your sort of mindset or something like that, or thinking for yourself, or yeah, something like that. I don't remember.
Something like that.
And then that's when he sort of explains the story about Jane, which Inara interprets to be Mal, because he's like, yeah, when we saw the ship touch down, like I knew it was him. It was it was I don't know why that's the case, since presumably
it was the hero, Jane, and then I was like, wait,
yeah.
what?
Yeah. So, but what's his face? The magistrate Higgins has also gotten word of all of this. So he does two things. He covertly landlocks Serenity, and he also frees a prisoner who looks like he's being kept in the most abhorrent conditions imaginable. He's literally just locked in like a human-sized box. Like, yeah. A box. It looks like a standing coffin, almost.
Yeah, they have apparently been feeding him there, but that's it. That's all they've been doing.
They let him out, and through dialogue, you get hints of it now, but then it's fully explained later. But through dialogue, you come to understand that he was partners with Jane, and that Jane, in addition to dropping the money, before he actually dropped the money in the cargo, what was it? He basically, I guess,
he also dropped
dropped his partner.
And his partner explains later to the town that he actually dropped him first before dropping the money.
And Jane, we'll just explain this now, whatever. Jane is like, you would have done the same. And, just the look on his face, obviously this guy, Stitch is his name, isn't like a nice man, but the look on his face tells me that he wouldn't have done the same to Jane.
Which is not all that shocking if you think about it. Jane is kind of a terrible person.
Yep. And Stitch literally says, like, we worked together for, like, months, man. Like, we were partners through thick and thin.
Jane's like, yeah, well.
This is all happening the next day, by the way, as we should explain. So the next day, they hold this Jane celebration. Mal and the rest of the crew are transporting the goods as Jane gives this like little speech in front of the statue.
Yeah, so this is the celebration. They're using it as cover. So while all this is going on, actually, Mal, Zoe, and Wash are taking the stolen goods back to Serenity, only to get caught up in the kerfuffle of Stitch showing up to basically challenge Jane for his crown, I guess.
Yeah, Stitch shows up at the bar and sort of harasses Simon, actually slashes his arm open. Simon surprisingly tries to fight back, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, and Simon's the one who's taken Stitch to the celebration because Stitch is, well, looking for Jane.
Mm-hmm. And so this part of the episode was probably the most interesting to me. So Jane is definitely the most action-packed, at least. Jane is giving this like speech, and he walks up to the soapbox or podium, whatever. It's not a podium, like pedestal or whatever. And he's like, I'm not really too good with words, but et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He gives the speech. But then what's interesting is that, like, when Stitch shows up with Simon, Stitch is like, so is this your man, Jane? And Jane says no. He saves Simon there, right? He's like, he says he's not related to him or whatever. So I thought it was kind of interesting how like those two aspects of the episode kind of came together there, where like Jane, it seems that being part of Serenity has changed Jane in a lot of different ways, right? Not only does he, I guess to some extent, care for the rest of the crew, even Simon, who he seemed to have been at odds with for most of the episodes so far. But he does it through words, which he just finished explaining how he wasn't good with. He sort of saves his skin there.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was interesting. Doesn't save the mother, who is about to die, though.
Yeah, Stitch goes, no. So Jane's like, is your plan to bore me to death? And Stitch goes, no, this is my plan. And pulls out like a shotgun and then tries to shoot Jane, only for a mother to jump in the way of the shotgun blast and take the full brunt of it. And then Jane just pulls a knife out of his pocket and throws it at Stitch and stabs him dead center chest, and somehow this doesn't just drop Stitch where he stands, because then Stitch like charges Jane and they kind of have a little bit of a fist fight, but Jane does end up killing Stitch.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Stitch is like, I was surprised how Stitch like probably had his muscles completely atrophy during his time in confinement, and then takes a knife to the heart and still puts up a fight.
Stitch is just a machine.
Like we were talking about before we started recording, his backstory is like on some maybe surface level similar to the Disney Stitch. They're both prisoners. They're condemned criminals.
They're both on the run from the law.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. But what Jane can't really accept here is like after he deals with Stitch, after he kills Stitch, he basically goes like, yep, now you guys know the truth. I'm no hero. I was just out for myself. But this doesn't really change people's minds. They still sort of idolize him.
Yeah, maybe even more so now for killing Stitch, this threat to their town.
Mm-hmm.
And Jane really doesn't understand this because, the final scene of the episode, obviously skipping a little bit with Fess and Inar, which we'll go back to, but the final scene of the episode is Jane and Mal in the cargo hold, and Jane just being like, I like really don't understand why he did that, and like why he saved me, and why they idolize me. Because like I stole the money, like I wasn't intending to give it to them. I was stealing from their society. And then I killed Stitch.
Mal basically just tells him that, from their perspective, it's not what he intended to do, but what he did. And I just wish that this episode aired in any of the airing orders, because even in the original Fox order, it came after. But I just wish this aired before Our Mrs. Reynolds, where Mal, at the end of this episode, goes, it wasn't what you intended, but what you did. Flash forward to him marrying Saffron, being like, well, but I didn't intend to do that.
And then everyone being like, well, Mal, it's not what you intended, it's what you did.
Imagine if that was the case, and if like Jane came back and he just rubbed this like heartfelt moment in Mal's face. But yeah, the entire reason they're able to have this conversation is because Serenity has taken off. And the entire reason why it was able to take off with the landlock was that Fess actually, realizing that his father's ways are not correct, released the landlock, allowing them to leave.
Right.
And he has this like smug line where he's like, "You wanted me to be a man, Dad. Guess I finally, am one. Guess I finally am making my own decisions."
It's better than that. He says like, "You sent me to Anara to like make me a man. Looks like it worked."
And I was gonna say, I don't know if you noticed, but since we talked about this before recording, you did notice just how like in this scene you get this shot where you can see him sitting at a table, but you can see under both below and above the table. And his, like, the way he's sitting, his legs are as spread as far as they possibly can be, like in a sitting position.
Yeah, he's got them wide open.
Yeah.
He's got them wide open.
This is like the, sitting on a bus technique of like, you really don't want anyone sitting next to you type of thing. Yet he's sitting at an individual chair at a table.
His dad's behind him, like
fuming,
angrily banging the wall. Like, dang it! I can't believe you've done this.
Yeah. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Yeah, and that's basically how the episode ends, was with the conversation with Mal and Jane, and then so that this scene with Fess and Higgins leads into that, and then that's how it ends. Oh, actually, that's not how it ends. It ends with another conversation between Simon and Kaylee, so it ends how it began, actually.
Yeah, she. Well, they're talking about how he. It can never really open up to Kaylee, and she's like, "Yeah, why do you do that?" And he's like, "Oh, well, like from where I come from, being respectful is like the best way I can show that I like you. So that's what I do." And then she's like, "So when we made love last night," he's like, "What?"
Yes,
but she's like, "Just kidding, just kidding."
Yeah, because we actually skipped a little bit with them. It's like the next morning after the scene in the bar. Like Mal comes to wake them up, and he like insinuates that they, slept together or something like that. And Simon goes like, "Oh, I would never," and Kaylee like kind of takes offense to this, not too much, but like a little bit.
Yeah, and that's actually setting up this conversation at the end, because she's like, "How can you do me so badly?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's Jaynestown. The dullest and most meandering Firefly episode so far. No, I mean, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, I would say it was boring, and I think that's... I think that's because this episode really didn't know who it wanted to focus on, and so it decided to focus on everyone. It's nice, and I appreciate that the Inara plotline tied into the Jane plotline with the landlocking. But like the river plotline didn't really have anything. You know, obviously it was this exploration of religion and its place amongst the Serenity crew. But it doesn't, you know, it kind of doesn't tie into the episode as well as they've done those things in previous episodes, you know, like compare that to, you know, like last week, even, you know, in Our Mrs. Reynolds, when he's talking, you know, when Shepherd Book's talking about marriage rituals and how that actually plays into the plot of the episode.
I think it's maybe a little bit more related than you're making it out to be. Maybe not much, but just a little, like, because Shepherd Book has that line, right, of like, you know, the Bible, despite how illogical it is, you know, it's a matter of belief, right? And that's sort of the beauty of it, is like it doesn't make sense, yet, you know, you believe it anyway because it has this sort of value. Regardless of how logical or sensical it is, and then sort of that's he's basically describing the viewpoint of the people of Canton when it comes to Jane.
Yeah, I mean that is true, but it's just like, I don't know, the episode is so muddled.
Yeah, pun intended, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like the difficulty in like pulling that connection out of the episode just kind of speaks to how unclear that connection really is in the episode.
It's not that difficult. It's like
it was difficult to me.
Pretty much plain as day. Sorry.
It was difficult to me.
But yeah, I agree. It was like, and it's almost like in this one you can very easily kind of see where it's going thematically as well, which was the case actually for previous episodes too. But I don't know. Maybe it was Jane. Like maybe Jane is just not.
Maybe Jane is bad.
Well, he is like a bad dude, right? Like, yeah, I don't know.
This was the Jane episode.
Mm-hmm. It was.
This was the Jane episode.
So we can reasonably expect him to take a back seat from here on out. Hell yeah.
Well, I was just going to say it's interesting that in the Jane episode, it presents Jane. I don't know, like in the previous episodes of the show so far that have focused on one character, we've explored that character's personality through how they act normally. Whereas Jaynestown kind of presents... I don't know, this episode is interesting in that it presents Jane in like the exact opposite light we've seen him in the past 6 episodes, you know? Like the past 6 episodes have done like a pretty, I don't want to say heavy job, but have done a pretty good job of showing that Jane is like a pretty ruthless guy. And he, you know, he's kind of vying for the captain's seat. He's vying for Mal's position. And then this episode, and Wash even has the line about it, like how he can't believe that they're talking about Jane like at all. But even still in this episode, Jane is like not even ruthless like at all, you know?
Yeah, well, it's like the whole thing with this episode is like it's showing that he does have a heart.
And the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
I know, yeah. Yeah, absolving him of his former crimes.
Wow.
Well, that is what it is, right? Is like the Grinch doesn't pay for his crimes because he feels that he shouldn't or something like that. I don't know. The
Grinch doesn't pay for his crimes because the people of Whoville don't realize that, like, when he shows up as their hero, the hero, the crimes that he's saving them from are his own. Like, if I remember correctly, nobody in Whoville ever finds out that the Grinch was the one who stole all of their presents.
Oh, really? Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess we're maybe being too analytical of, like, Doctor Who or Dr. Seuss or something like that. But But like the gist of that story, come to think of it, does seem to be like, if you personally have this change of heart, then that makes it all okay.
Yeah, and that's why Kylo absolving himself in the in Rise of Skywalker, when he talks with his memory and goes, you know what, I can come back from this edge that I put myself on, is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, I actually think I've said everything I want to say about Jaynestown.
Yeah, same.
Let's do... Well, I think I already talked about the one translation that was really interesting, but I'll mention one other one, which is when Wash finds out the ship is landlocked, he has he also has another swear in Chinese. Again, we keep referring to this as Chinese, and again, I want to clarify it's because we don't know like what dialect this is all supposed to be. But basically, it translates allegedly again to "motherless goats of all motherless goats."
Oh wow, it's pretty funny.
I also want to mention that a couple weeks ago I mentioned that alleged proverb that the wiki mentions. The one about the badly carved swan looking like a duck. Well, guess what? I tried finding a source for that anywhere that wasn't the Firefly wiki, and I couldn't find one. So,
yeah, I saw that. I saw that you'd put that in the show notes. That like the Firefly wiki is the only place that cited that. Nice, just making up information and putting it on a wiki as if it's true. Nice. Probably.
I have a friend who's. I have a friend who's Cantonese. I guess I could ask her.
Hey, wait, Canton, huh?
Interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, let's do some actors.
Aren't we gonna do? We usually do the Western.
Oh yeah, actually you're right. Let's do some tropes
first. Yeah, just look at how okay you are with using the word tropes versus me. Like I try to find a way around it every single week.
Yeah, but they are tropes.
And then you just come in
like a wrecking ball,
man-esque.
Yeah. Well, they are tropes. I mean, they are tropes. This is the whole point of this.
Yeah, in the modern like poor usage of the word trope, which I'm not okay with, which is why.
Oh well.
But fine. The only one that I could really think of is like the company town type thing, which is maybe not a Western trope, but like the town that's under like the thumb of like someone in industry or something like that.
Oh, I was going to say that is a good one. I was also going to say the prevalence and complete acceptance of indentured servitude. Just, let's like not forget to mention the fact that exists in this episode and is basically completely not even remarked upon or acknowledged by anyone in the episode.
Yeah, Jane has this line during his speech. He goes, he says, like, as far as I can see, you people have, like, drawn the shortest straw that you could possibly draw in life. But it's not as if, it's basically just fully accepted. It's not as if the Serenity crew, like, looks at the society on Canton, goes like, well, this isn't right or anything like that. It's basically just fully accepted.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a thing that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we can do actors.
Yeah.
I think we both looked up two. I don't think it matters who starts. So, do you want to just go ahead and start?
Sure. I looked up Kevin Gage, who plays Stitch. he's had a pretty extensive career, still acting to this day. Started in the mid-'80s, it looks like. His first role as an actor was Highway to Heaven, the TV show. He was in Werewolf, L.A. Law. He was in Con Air.
Great.
Uncredited, actually. G.I. Jane. I don't know what that is, actually, but I assume that it's a G.I. Joe spinoff. Martial Law, the TV show. Firefly, obviously. Smallville. CSI Miami. What else here? A lot of stuff I don't recognize, but Call of Duty Ghosts as a voice actor. Sons of Anarchy, hey.
Why are we saying hey to that?
I don't know. I just say hey to random ones now.
Oh, okay.
Amnesia, Scorpion, Cosmic Radio this year, Hustle Down, and he looks like he's in a lot of things that are still filming or that are in post-production, such as Escape from Blackwater, The Owl in Echo Park, The Italy Boys.
The Italy Boys.
Yeah. Uppercut. And it's him.
Okay, well. So the first person I looked up is Zachary Kranzler as Fess. He actually has a pretty small range of acting credits. There's only 8 acting credits. He is apparently right now a writer and producer on something called The Extraordinary Farewell. But anyway, so this is acting credits. Firefly, Frasier, Las Vegas, Mismatch, Purpose, Playing Mona Lisa, Where's George, and his first acting credit in 1999, Nash Bridges. And that's it. I just read his entire acting credits on IMDb.
Yeah, probably like half a decade to a decade of his life summed up in like 8 seconds.
Yeah, well, actually only 4 years. All those acting credits are over the course of 4 years.
Oh. Well, he didn't really deal the TV acting world a huge blow with his departure. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, I looked up Gregory Itzin, who played Higgins Sr. And he has by contrast, and also just not by contrast, just in general, like a massive acting career, spanning back to the 70s. 185 credits according to IMDb, starting with Backstairs at the White House and continuing on to such famous shows and movies as Charlie's Angels, Airplane, Airplane 2, the sequel.
Oh, great.
Street Hawk, Santa Barbara, the TV series, Hotel, the TV series, MacGyver, the TV series, St. Elsewhere, the TV series, Outlaws, the TV series. I'll stop saying the TV series. 21 Jump Street, the TV series, not the movie. I should clarify. So I guess I won't stop saying it. The Nut House, Over My Dead Body, Night Court, FBI: The Untold Stories, Civil Wars, Beverly Hills 90210, Matlock, LA Law, just a lot of famous stuff. I can keep going on here. Something Wilder.
Well, I'm going to cut you off. I'm cutting you off.
We only went through like half his stuff.
Okay, well, good enough. The next person I've got is Daniel Best, and the last person, I suppose. He's just credited as Mudder. He's still acting. He's got a pretty extensive acting career, too. About 28 things. Snatched, movie from 2017. Hawaii Five-0, iZombie. Numbers, CSI Miami. Regular CSI, JAG, ER, Firefly. And basically, like, I think he had a recurring role in one season of 24. It looks like he was in, like, all of the episodes of that season, so.
Yeah, Gregory Itzin was also in 24. I would have said that if you hadn't cut me off, unceremoniously cut me off. He's also in Hannah Montana.
Great.
And Boston Legal. Oh, he was in Star Trek Enterprise. And the OC. Wow. Well, I guess that's it.
I guess that's it. Okay, so we have an email from Steven this week in response to our Mrs. Reynolds episode. Hey guys, I won't go in depth about the Disney Channel universe, but just wanted to correct you guys about something. When trying to think of other Disney Channel shows at the end of the most recent episode, Dylan mentioned Victorious. That was actually a Nickelodeon show. It did, however, cross over with another Nickelodeon show, iCarly. In fact, references here and there made some of those Nickelodeon shows pretty much the same universe. I remember the crossover iParty with Victorious being pretty hype, and now with iCarly revived on Paramount Plus, it's pretty wild that the show now feels rated TV-14 and can reference adult situations straight up, and even including a bit of cursing here and there that you wouldn't see in a TV Y7 show, for example. Anyway, just throwing that out there. Sorry for the correction going off the rails. Cheers, Steven. Thanks for correcting me, Steven. Yeah, Victorious actually was a Nickelodeon show, but it does bring up a good point that there isn't like a Nickelodeon universe.
Mm-hmm. I barely even know, what Victorious was. I never watched it. And two, like, what the hell does Nickelodeon even show now in 2021? Like, I don't think I know a single show. Maybe SpongeBob, if they still show it. I'm sure they do.
Oh, they absolutely do, and I think the creator of SpongeBob died, and they made a whole bunch of like spin-offs.
Yeah,
and
he died like 2 or 3 years ago. I had that conspiracy theory that Nickelodeon assassinated him to boost the sales of their Rocko's Modern Life Blu-rays.
What? What?
I told you about this, but apparently their Rocko's Modern Life like DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever were underselling, and like Steven Hillenburg was a big creative mind behind that show before he created SpongeBob. So like my conspiracy theory was that they like assassinated him to get his name basically in the news and people talking about it, so they would be led to buy their stupid Rocko's Modern Life box sets. Not stupid, it's a good show, but yeah.
Did it work?
Considering
I don't know why I'm asking did it work as if this conspiracy theory is fact.
Considering I just made it up and it's like there's no way it's true. Like, oh, I guess it didn't work.
Oh. Yeah, Nickelodeon shows like they've got 2 SpongeBob spin-offs, Camp Coral, SpongeBob's Under Years, and the Patrick Star Show.
And died.
Yeah, I guess they just like the instant the guy who created SpongeBob died and they like got the rights, they were like, all right, now we can make all these spin-offs he never wanted to do. SpongeBob is still going, by the way, on season 13.
Only 13, that's surprising. It was created in...
Yeah, but 268 episodes. Apparently they've revived Rugrats.
Really scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Tyler Perry's young Dylan. Well, that sounds great.
There are multiple different facets of that we could just dive into, but that we shouldn't.
Danger Force. Is this a spin-off of Henry Danger? Yeah, it is. It's a spin-off of Henry Danger. I don't even know what Henry Danger is because I used to babysit some kids and they used to love watching Henry Danger and I used to sit down and watch. I knew all the Henry Danger lore at one point. I can't believe I just admitted that on the podcast. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna cut this right here. I'm gonna end this tangent. And I suppose that wraps up the episode for the week. So if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadavevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Jane and his town. You can find us on YouTube at Decadative Vegetable. You can find us anywhere you find podcasts at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TY Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching Out of Gas. But until then, the end.